Johnny way. Good afternoon, Zimbabwe. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Zimbabwe Daily, your everyday platform where we bring you news, information, and programs that help build our country. My name is Yvonne and this is Frank Talk. Today we are talking to leaders of the labor movement in Zimbabwe. We have the ZCTU, we have the PTUZ, we have Artuz. We are still expecting from the Doctors Association as well as from the Doctors Association. Unfortunately, the other leader could not be with us this afternoon. But we want to talk about the state of the labor as it is today. Do we still have a labor to talk about? And if we do, what is the condition as it is right now? And what is it that is the ideal? What would make our labor movement be more exciting? What would make the labor environment conducive for the mantra, Zimbabwe is open for business? What then needs to be done in order for us to get there from where we are? And I must highlight that I got a number of flack earlier on that why is your panel filled with the men? I think that is one of the biggest problem why we are in the mess that we are at the present moment, because we have too many men at the top of leadership. So I'm going to ask my guests this afternoon to kindly introduce themselves. I'll start with you, President Mutasa.
Hi, thank you, Yvonne, and thank you for inviting us to this important platform and for this important dialogue. Yes, we must apologize upfront. Our panel is not gender sensitive, and it is a result of a number of issues, including programming issues. My name is Peter Gift Mutasa. I am the president of Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions, the oldest and biggest federation in the country.
Awesome, thank you so much. I'll come to you, President Zhou.
My name is Dr. Takavafira Zhou. I'm the president of the Progressive Teachers Union of Zimbabwe and a historian by training. And I've studied the development of labor movement from 1900 to the present.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, President Zhou. Over to you, President Masaraure.
Good afternoon, Yvonne. Afternoon, viewers. Thank you so much, Yvonne, for inviting us to this great platform. My name is Obert Masaraure, a chemistry teacher at Chairman's High School in Wedza. I'm the incumbent president of the Amalgamated Raw Teachers Union of Zimbabwe.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming to this platform. I'm going to allow President Mutasa to give us an overview. I understand in the last 1 to 2 weeks, you had a meeting of all the different labor unions in Zimbabwe. Maybe you can just give us a small update on what really transpired during that meeting. What were the observations of the current trends in our country?
Right. So thank you very much once again, Yvonne. Last week, at one, we had the Wages and Salaries Summit. The ZCTU, together with Ledris, our research institute, organized a Wages and Salaries Summit for all unions in the country. So we had the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions, we had the Zimbabwe Federation of Trade Unions, we had PTUZ, we had Artuz, we also had the Zimbabwe Hospital Doctors Association. We also invited the Apex Council, which negotiates for public sector workers. Unfortunately, Apex Council could not attend, but they indicated that they were in support of the summit. The main purpose of the summit was to look at the devaluation of and erosion of workers' salaries. So we wanted to take stock of what has been happening since 2018 up to date. We also intended to build a consensus around what must be done, and whether we are looking and seeing things in the same lenses and the same way. I'm happy that we looked at this matter and agreed as labor leaders and as trade unions that were present that the situation is bad for workers. We looked at a situation where in 2018, which was the best year that we looked at, majority of the sectors were earning salaries that were above the food poverty line when we were still in US dollars. And quite a number of unions and sectors were also earning salaries that were above the poverty datum line itself, or closer to the poverty datum line. And when the situation changed in 2019, with the government promulgating SI 33, SI 142, and now in 2020, SI 185, where the government allowed the businesses and government institutions and local authorities to peg their prices of goods and services in US dollar, the situation has now changed because workers are still earning in RTGS, but all prices of goods and services are now in US dollar. So we realize that the majority of the sectors are now earning below the food poverty line. And not many, not even one or two, maybe only one or two are earning around the poverty datum line. So this is a dire situation, and all the labor leaders that were there and our technical teams agreed that we cannot continue on this. And we then made various recommendations and suggestions and resolutions that we need to come together as workers and fight for a living wage. And I'm glad the comrades who are here were part and parcel of the discussion, and they can also add on as we discuss going forward. But the main message that came out of that summit is it's no longer going to be business as usual. Trade unions are going to be united. We think this is also accepted by even those who were not there at Apex Council. We don't see how any trade unionist or any trade union movement can allow what is happening to continue. And we think we share the same view.
Right. Thank you so much for giving us that background to what has led us to where we are today. And definitely we need to find a common ground upon which we can all step onto. I'll come to you, Comrade Zhou, if you can just give us an analysis of how the wages of the workers, and especially the teachers, have been eroded over time.
I think the main issue, particularly when we look at the teachers, is that in October 2018, teachers were earning a salary that ranged from 520 to 550 US dollars. And by 2019, the salary was reduced to about 35 US dollars. And currently, teachers are earning a salary ranging from 11,300 to about 19,500. So you are looking at teachers that are earning slightly above $100. So that in itself is an indicator that capital is crippled and stifled labor over the years. And this is a concept of neoliberalism, whereby we after the 2017 soft coup, we adopted a neoliberal policy that assumed that we could really adopt a ESAB or second ESAB, and that ESAB benefited a few, and the majority of the Zimbabwean, particularly the workers, have worsened, their condition has worsened, and they've sunk deeper and deeper into malice and poverty and penury. What we're also highlighting was an issue of social dialogue, that over the years from 2018 up to now, the social dialogue has been defective, and particularly as government workers, government has unilaterally announced the salaries, reduced the salaries without any negotiation with the teachers, and even currently continues to stifle collective bargaining. And as teachers in Zimbabwe in particular, we are sick and tired of using a statutory instrument 141 of 1997 that has become not only obsolete but anarchic and out of order. We want now to move in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution and in terms of ILO Convention 87 and 98, which Zimbabwean government is ratified. And we also encourage government to ratify Convention 151 and 154 that pertains to negotiation for government workers. So realistically, workers in Zimbabwe are worse off than they were in 1918 and in 2018. And workers have, or teachers have, a dispute of right. The dispute of right of restoring the purchasing power parity of the salaries of teachers. And without that, there will be no respite in the education system, because currently with 11,000 and with fees ranging from 42,000 to 60,000, there is no way a teacher can fork such fees, and a teacher cannot go to school to teach other people's children when our own children are at home. So we have created a quandary that need to be addressed through social dialogue. And that social dialogue must also see the unity of workers and lobbying of government in order to pay better salaries. And if government is not paying better salaries, other companies cannot also pay better salaries. So government must lead by example and show that it is respecting social dialogue, and also that would lead to proper TNF negotiation for the broader workers in Zimbabwe.
Awesome. Thank you so much, President Zhou. I'll come to you, President Masaraure. From the conversations that you were having, do you feel as rural teachers, your concerns are also catered in the end? What are these concerns really, and how are they fitting into this broader alliance that you're forming as labor movements in pushing for government to take initiatives around the welfare of our labor, of our Zimbabwe's labor force?
Thank you so much, Yvonne. Let me also thank President Peter Mutasa for really unpacking the background of the discourse we had a week ago. And Comrade Zhou also went on to really articulate the challenges faced by the teachers of Zimbabwe at the moment. Now you will note that statutory instrument 185, which was referred to by President Mutasa, gives citizens the right to sell their goods and services in foreign currency, and labor is a service. So basically, as rural teachers and as the workers in general, we are saying we have made a decision and we have made a choice that the service which we offer our labor is no longer going to be supplied in RTGS. We are never going to allow our employers to pay us in RTGS. Just like other service providers, we are now demanding our salaries to be in US dollars. This really means going forward, our demands are now very clear that for teachers, our salaries should be paid at a minimum of USD 520. The only compromise that we can have is that maybe this government can at times use the prevailing rates to pay us in local currency, but obviously we will need our USD 520. Now, we find ourselves at a position of advantage as the working class. We are a unique grouping because each and every day we are working directly with those who steal, those who loot from us, and we create the wealth and they are taking it away. In front of us, in our eyes, it is so clear when Mthuli Ncube says the wage bill, which used to be about 90%, has been reduced to 40%. We all know that the 50% he is boasting about the surplus is money they did steal from the workers of Zimbabwe, is the money they stole from the civil servants, money they are not paying. And this is the same that is happening even in private sector. The workers in the private sector are actually creating wealth, and their employers are taking advantage of the precedents being set by government, and they're exploiting the workers, and the workers are earning some as low as $50 monthly. Now, given that particular context where we find ourselves fixated as the workers, we have to take advantage of what we have, which is the fact that we are well structured. We work together, up to 50 teachers at a school, up to 100 workers at one company. This is high time now. We are contemplating serious mass organization, serious mass mobilization, as we take up the spirit of the workers of the colonial era. We know there's no fundamental difference between Emmerson Mnangagwa and the colonial governments which used to run our republic earlier on. But we are aware of the spirit of Benjamin Burumbo. We are aware of the spirit of Joshua Ngomo. They were workers then, and we are saying now, be it road teachers, be it urban teachers, be it workers in the private sector, we now have to organize ourselves and say in no uncertain terms, never again are we going to allow our services to be paid in useless currency. As the world creators, we have the capacity to halt any business in this republic until our issues are addressed. We know Emmerson Mnangagwa has adopted austerity measures, neoliberalism, and trusted a technocrat, his former banker Mthuli Ncube, to run the affairs of our country. And he has reneged on all forms of dialogue, including the legislated TNF. He has reneged on all forms of dialogue, even including dialogue between the civil servants and government through the NJNS, of course, which is again an illegal platform, which should be replaced by a progressive collective bargaining platform. But we are, given this context where he has chosen also to use the stick as a tool of choice, continuously repressing our people, capturing the judiciary, jailing our comrades, including Sheila Chisimuno and even Makomborero, a young leader. But we are saying, given this context, it is up to us as organized labor to lead, not only to emancipate the workers, but also to organize the peasants, to organize those in the informal economy, given the context that 76% of our people are participating in the informal economy. And this is a responsibility which we have accepted. This is a duty which we have accepted. And we are glad that the ZCTU has provided leadership and organizing and bringing all leaders together so that collectively we can now go out there, confront the regime of Emmerson Mnangagwa, and ensure that all the workers get a living wage. It's unacceptable to have the majority of workers earning way below the food poverty line. It's unacceptable for teachers to be teaching other people's children when they cannot even send their own children to school.
Excellent. Thank you so much, President Masaraure. We're coming to you live on Zimbabwe Daily, and we are talking about the observations of the labor terrain in Zimbabwe. What is the ideal and where are we going? So you can come through with your questions, your comments, your contributions. We would love to hear from you. And these are the issues that are really fundamental in developing our country. How do we go forward when we have a labor force that is not capacitated to do the work? We have seen during the lockdown teachers failing to attend to their classes because they said they are not able to attend those classes. And as has been highlighted by President Masaraure, how do you attend to other people's children when your own children are in the house? Now, I want to come to you, President Mutasa. Maybe you can take us through one of the documents that was presented during the summit, the wages and salaries document, as has been highlighted, but maybe giving us this graphical illustration of what this exactly means.
Yeah, so we had our economists. We also had labor lawyers in the form of Comrade Munyaradzi Gwisai, our esteemed labor economist, Dr. Godfrey Kennias spoke at length about the political economy of the country from 1980 up to now, and where we have had policy missteps in terms of our ideology, in terms of the ideology that was guiding policy, ASAP, and now austerity. He compared the Zimbabwean economy in terms of GDP developments, in terms of capacity utilization, in terms of development, human development. And what was clear is that we are lagging behind. We also had Comrade Naomi Chakanya, who had just, together with the team, done a survey around the wages developments from 2018 to 2021. So if you look at that first slide there, you see that in 2018, by December 2018, we had majority of our sectors were earning above the red line, the first red line there, which is the food poverty line, which was around $202 US. So the majority of unions and majority of sectors had negotiated above that. If you take the second line there, you'll see that quite a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 sectors were even earning around the poverty datum line. But even the difference between the salaries and the poverty datum line was not very huge. But if you go to 2019, when the Mutulingwe and the government introduced these austerity measures and also reintroduction of the Zimbabwean dollar currency, you see that almost all the majority of the unions or sectors were now earning below the food poverty line. What it means is workers are going to work, but they cannot even buy sufficient food for their families. The majority of all the sectors, only 6 or 7 sectors were earning above food poverty line. But what is now more starting clear is that all the unions, all the sectors failed to attain food poverty line. So by 2019 December, a policy that was introduced in October 2018 had already caused havoc by December 2019. Just in 3 months, no sector was earning above the poverty datum line. If you go to 2020, the situation is even worse, and you can see there again by December 2020, the poverty datum line at 23,000, and now it's above. It's now 26. And if you look at the CCZ food basket, it's around 35. So there's no worker who is earning around the poverty datum line. But if you look at the food poverty line, the majority of workers are now even far away from the food poverty line. So what it simply means is that workers are subsidizing companies. Workers are subsidizing the government. They are doing other menial jobs, other activities to get money to go to work, to get money to buy food, to get money to pay for rentals. And what it means is there's been massive transfer of wealth from working class, from those who are working, to businesses and to government and to the few rich political elites and their cronies. And this is what motivated workers to unite and to say enough is enough. We need to fight for our survival. There is a lot of indignity in those figures. What those figures are pointing out is simply showing that workers are no longer able to pay school fees for their kids. So there are a lot of social effects in those figures. What it means is workers are no longer able to access medical care. You cannot go to hospital when you are not feeling well. You can't hire an ambulance, which is going for $190. So there are lots of deaths in those figures. People are dying without medical care. People are going hungry, are sleeping hungry. Families are breaking. So it's not just about the statistics. We looked at the qualitative side of it and the quality of life. and it means workers have lost all dignity. And this is why we really have to fight. And if you look at the few sectors that have managed to pay US dollars, you look at your ZCTU there, it's in the NGO sector, and because NGOs are earning in US dollars. And there are few sectors like metal that have got a basic salary of 190. But if you take that 190 against the 300 and something poverty datum line, it is nugget or useless. And you also have some few sectors that have got allowances like railways, $50 50 US dollars and $100 basic salary there in another sector, ceramics, against figures of 300 and 300 US dollars, the food poverty line. That is negatory as well. So there is general pauperization of the working class. Working class have been made paupers. Pensioners have been made paupers. And this policy cannot be continued. We'll show you the other document from Comrade Gwisai where we compared how companies are faring. And if you look at that document, you see that the majority will use the majority of the manufacturing companies. The manufacturing companies like cement, they used to use 185 units to produce 185 units to pay one worker. But if you look at the figures now, they only need to produce 85 units to pay one worker. So what it means is there's been economic gain, they've been ramped up productivity, and also capacity utilization is shown by the ZNCC manufacturing survey. But the gain is transferred from workers to companies. And this is the bone of contention. So it is about life. It is not something to play around. So this is what I am referring to. If you look in industry X there, by fourth quarter, and using NEC minimums, you can see that unfortunately it's quite faint. You can see that the wages in US dollar there, in Zim dollar there, have been reduced to 5,635. But those used to be US dollar wages in the past. And if you look at how much workers have lost, you can see that using the exchange rate of 15.23, the wages have been reduced to around 41 US dollars by 2019. So workers who were earning 278 or who were earning 278 US dollars are now earning 41 US dollars. And this shows how wages have been eroded and how labor has been devalued. And the situation is the same across all sectors. And this is disastrous.
Disastrous indeed. We just want to welcome Mr. Tawanda Zvakada. He's just joining us. Mr. Zvakada, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I can hear you quite clearly. I don't know if you are able to hear me.
Yes, we can. Maybe what you can do is to just kindly introduce yourself to our viewers on the platform.
Okay, I'm Dr. Tawanda Zvakada, the current president of the Zimbabwe Hospital Doctors Association. Apologies for coming in a bit late, and apologies again. I am not in a position to show my video. I think it's not broadcasting quite well. It's due to challenges with my camera. So apologies very much. Yeah. So that's me. Yes.
It is well, Doctor. Thank you so much for joining us. So we were just talking about the observations that came out of the workshop that as labor unions you had during the, in the last 2 weeks. So we getting an update on how much the salaries have been eroded by the by the inflation and the statutory instruments that affected the 1:1 and again changed the state of the Zimbabwe dollar, the RTGS versus the United States dollar. So maybe, Doctor, just as you have come in, you can give us an update of how much your sector has been affected by the changes that took place with the statutory instruments that were introduced in 2018-2019 season.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, we attended a workshop, a summit, labor union leader summit, in which we deliberated on the issues that I believe have already been articulated to earlier on, which we saw the erosion of salaries across all sectors, and we're seeing trends of how the salaries compare. Yeah, we saw that in as much as the doctors were um, receiving or ranking first when it comes to the figures of salaries which are received. Uh, as doctors and other workers, we are all living below the poverty datum line, as we saw from the trends that were broadcasted earlier on. Our members used to receive around 1,800 back in 2019, and that salary has been gradually losing its value. When we came to the year 2020, we saw that the salary remained at 1.8 and it wasn't revised until at some point in time, the amount, the value was $80. And then that's when we started to saw Mtulingli and the government uh, offering some increments, but the salaries have just been mere. And over the past 2 years, the doctors have been getting between $100 and 250. Uh, that's the range that they've been getting. In as much as they might be ranking first when it comes to other civil servants, but we realize that the value in itself it's little, and they are doctors just like any other workers. We are living below the poverty datum line. That's what we mainly got from the workers union that we attended the summit, that the salaries across all sectors have been very much unpleasing, uh, as well as the conditions of services in our hospitals that have been uh, deteriorating on a daily basis, and it's really sorry scenario in our hospitals at the moment. Yes, thank you very much.
Doctor, I will come back to you again. You are in these times of COVID-19, and as doctors, you are complaining like this. How does it then look on our primary health care? Are you then able to deliver at the levels that we expect you to be, especially in this COVID-19 season?
Well, the situation in our hospitals is quite dire, and it's really a challenge with COVID-19 also coming on board. So the situation has actually moved from bad to worse, in that the hospitals had already been strained, and PPE is nowhere to be found, and we have to fight a pandemic. So the situation right now in our hospitals is really, really dire, and we continue to lose lives, necessary lives which could have been saved. We lose them on a daily basis because the doctors, on top of being demotivated, they are left to fight without adequate PPE. So you can just imagine the situation, what it's like. So we really, really hope for an improvement in our hospitals if we are to move on as a nation, or if we are to avoid this disaster that's already upon us, because it's a disaster, if I can call it that way, in our hospitals.
Wow, what a sad picture to be painted. Indeed, our primary healthcare systems have been affected. Already we've been struggling over the years, and with COVID-19 coming on board, that has further disturbed the flow of things. Now, I want to come to then say, okay, we've seen the problems, and I'm sure Zimbabweans know the problem, because on a daily basis, we have to contend with children who are not learning. We have to contend with hospitals that are not functioning at the levels that would want. We are the ones contending with our road systems that are just whack. We have to contend with so much. We have to contend even with an economy that is not really functioning well. What is the ideal? I mean, if people were to look at it, what should be happening to our workers? How should they be surviving? What is the normal wage? If we were to look at it now, and what you've called the poverty datum line and everything, what would be the normal salary ranges that we should be getting as workers in order for us to at least have a decent life? I'll come to you, President Mutasa. Just an overall appreciation of industries across the board to say, if salaries were to range from a minimum of this to a maximum of this, it would make sense, because remember, we need to rebuild our country, as it were.
Right. So, in our discussion, we picked another said thing that we were shown by our economists that prices of goods and services are going up, and they are not just going up in Zim dollar terms; they are actually going up in US dollar terms. So we have an peculiar situation where, as a country, we have done something that is unthinkable, that we have US dollar inflation as well, a currency that does not belong to us, but we now have US dollar inflation. So wages are being eroded through inflation. They are also being eroded through currency devaluation. And after looking at everything, we realize that the only way to go about it is to reset. And we can only reset by going back to where we were in 2018. So if a teacher was earning 520 in 2018, we need to go back to 2018 salaries. The majority of workers were earning around $300 US in 2018. Yes, it is still below the poverty datum line, but that would be a better point to start at. So people should go back where they were in 2018, as I've shown in the first graph that I showed earlier on. In 2018, the majority of sectors were earning above the food poverty line. So we are not even seeking luxurious lifestyles. We are saying we need to be earning above that food poverty line. Never mind the poverty datum line, but the food poverty line, so that we can only get food, nutrition. We need to just get the bare minimums for us to survive. So this is what we are calling for. If you look at the domestic sector, domestic worker sector, they were earning $85 US, and those who were staying away were earning, or those working for older people or the sick were earning $100 US. Now they are earning $9 US, which is only able to buy them 9 loaves of bread. Definitely, there's no colonialism, there's no slavery, there's no subjugation, there's no exploitation that can match that. That a person with a family can only, who is working for 30 days, is only earning 9 loaves of bread. This is unthinkable. It's a form of slavery that is pathetic. So we are just saying, restore the purchasing power of workers. We know you have increased your salaries. Right today, yesterday, the Minister of Information introduced or updated the nation that the cabinet has now introduced new measures at the passport offices. Passports are now in US dollars. For a domestic worker to get $60 US from their salary, they need to work for almost 9 months without spending anything, 8 months without spending anything from their $9 US salary to get a passport. And this is not odd. So this is what we are saying. We just need restoration We don't want anyone to get more than what they were getting in 2018. That's not our demand. We don't want people to live luxurious lives. That's not our demand. We want people, working people, to be able to buy food.
Right. Thank you so much, President Mutasa, for that. Now, I want to ask this question before I move on to President Zhou. How many people are actually employed in Zimbabwe? What's our workforce like? What's the percentage?
Right. So there is a challenge and a dispute around unemployment figures. But if you look at the last labor force survey of 2019, it said we have about 2,925 people who are employed in this country, and unemployment is around 16%. If you then look at a qualitative, this is amazing, because even in South Africa, the unemployment rate is around 27%. So we are even said to be better than even some developed countries or upper middle income economies. But there's something that is hidden in these figures. If you look at those figures, 50% of the people that were interviewed are what we term discouraged people who no longer look for employment. And the reference period of 7 days, people were looking for employment within the 7 days to the survey. The majority of them have given up. They've gone back to rural homes. They are doing other things. So 50% are discouraged people who are supposed to be part and parcel of the labor force. And if you then look at the 2.925 that are said to be employed, 41% of them, they are underemployed. So if you take a combined rate of unemployment, which is what we must be using in this country, which brings in the qualitative side of it, you can see that the 50%, the 41%, the 16%, if you combine it, we have almost 90 or 80% of our people who should not be said to be employed, because we are counting people who are selling tomatoes and just getting 50 cents profit a day or $1 a profit a day. And if you look at how much they earn a month, that the $30, the $40, that's for subsistence. So if you then also look at the statistics around the people who are in formal jobs, 76% of those who are said to be employed, they are holding informal jobs. They don't have medical aid, they don't have pensions, they don't have leave, they have no social protection of whatever. If they are ill today, it means their families are also not going to get food on their tables. So the situation is dire. In our assessment, we have always consistently said our unemployment, if we take a real measurement of what people who are in gainful employment, it must be around 90%. So we are in trouble in that regard.
We are in trouble indeed. 90% of our people unemployed, 70% in formal employment, and
76%,
yet 76%, and yet lacking the fundamentals, medical aid, policies that will ensure that they are safe even after employment. I'll come to you, Dr. Zhou. What is it that you would say as teachers? If we have these fundamentals in place, then our profession is safe. Sorry, your mic is on mute. Please go ahead.
Okay. The starting point is government workers must have collective bargaining. Since the strike in 1996, government tried to give a dummy, giving State Arrangement 141 of 1997. It does not lead to collective bargaining. It is mere consultative and dependent on the wishes and whims of finance minister. What we want is a binding collective bargaining and not collective begging. So that's the starting point, and we must respect Section 65 of the Constitution. Then in terms of our salary, it's very issue is that we must restore the purchasing power parity of teachers to a salary they were earning in 2018. That salary of US 520 to US 550. That in itself will give the dignity, the luster that they lost. But one other aspect also is important, that the salary of teachers must be a result of social dialogue. That social dialogue must imply that government officials we meet workers and they must meet as equals. But the tragedy that we have in Zimbabwe is that government just announces salaries through the newspapers. And even worse still, as much as the government is pronounced that it has no money, it is also even flouting constitution by awarding other workers handsomely as opposed to the teachers. For example, we know of workers that are earning 4 times, 5 times, 6 times the salaries of teachers. When they have less qualification, when they have also less responsibilities, and when they are not in peculiar, because teachers in essence are a primary industry, because all other professions are a product of teaching. Teachers are, or teaching is the mother of all professions. But if we correct the issue of collective bargaining, we pay teachers salaries that are above 520 US, and then those salaries are a product of engagement. I think teachers in Zimbabwe will be better, because the current scenario where the salaries cannot even afford you to educate your own children, where the salaries are unilaterally declared by the government, is unfortunate and ill-conceived. But with a salary of 520 US dollars, 550 US dollars, I can rest assured you that there will be meaningful teaching and learning in schools. Teachers will be innovative, dynamic, and industrious, and produce products that can function beyond the classroom. Currently, we are pursuing Agenda 2030. Agenda 2030 is providing education or life-saving skills that can assist students beyond the classroom, that can assist students or people in their lifetime. But if we continue the current system of cold and calculated educational vandalism, the country will be going to the drains, and teachers cannot guard jealously against the trenches of folly and ignorance. We want teachers to do the best that they've been trained to do. Everyone in Zimbabwe wants his or her own child to pass, and that enthusiasm or zeal must also zero in terms of the salaries that teachers are getting.
Awesome. You have raised the issue of salaries as being critical in improving the quality of life for the teachers. But what other things should be in place for the teacher profession to also function very well? The salaries, I think we have spoken about them, and we cannot underemphasize. We need to continue to raise the issue of the quality of life of a teacher. But beyond your salaries, what else is not in place right now that needs to be in place?
I've highlighted one issue which is important in teaching, that all the reforms that are introduced in the education system must be a product of engagement and consultation. We have a challenge where government officials who sit in big offices push down reforms down the throat of the teacher. We need a curriculum that is blending theory and practice. That curriculum can ensure that Zimbabwe can develop. Apart from a curriculum, we also need a conducive environment in the schools. Schools must have all the technology. We have currently schools that do not have even a textbook, they do not have computers, they do not have electricity. But the curriculum has changed and they want you to teach computers. A child has not even seen a computer. So the learning then remains abstract. Apart from that, we want also a proper or reasonable teacher ratio. Teachers such as teaching a class of 103 students, that is unpalatable. We need classes currently because of COVID. The teacher people ratio must be 1:20. But we have teachers that are teaching 70, 80, 100. That is unpalatable. The structures are also not there. We have students that are also learning under a tree. We have teachers school where there's only one house or 2 rooms, and we have about 19 teachers living in that house. So we really need to ensure that the infrastructure between rural in urban area is appropriate for learning and teaching. We also need a professional council of teachers where teachers can self-regulate themselves rather than the current situation where the government unilaterally craft regulations that govern teachers. And most of those regulations are not favorable to the teachers. They are a one-armed banditry. We want a situation where teaching is self-regulated. Like other professions, if you look at lawyers and the like, we could discipline each other and the like. But the ministry does not want to move along those lines. It would want teachers that are always regulated by the ministry. So we have not moved far away from the master and servant during the colonial period. We need also even engagement with parents, because we are now in the 21st century. Some of the reforms that are introduced are alien to what the parents are doing. Teaching now has become so broad. It would need not necessarily the government, but the teachers as well as the parents, so that we work collectively, and there is standardization and interoperability. Those issues are critical in the 21st century. The issue of communication, technology, but we also rush to introduce a curriculum that look at those issues, but without addressing the fundamentals, such as the issue of electricity, computers, and the like. We have also peoples that are walking 19 kilometers in rural areas. We have schools that have no water. So the result is that we cannot do a miracle. We have teachers that are also walking 10 kilometers to get to the nearest source of water. So it will consume a lot of time between the teachers and the pupils. So this is part and parcel of the high failure rate in the rural area in particular, where 88% of the schools scored 0% at grade 7 in 2019. So all those issues must be discussed and not be brushed.
Awesome. Thank you so much, President Day. I'll come to you, President Masaraure, because you also happen to have a peculiar constituency, and that is the rural teachers. Now, what is it with the rural teachers that you would want to see improving in terms of even some of the issues that President Zhou has highlighted? What is it that you'd want to see as rural teachers improving in order for your lives to become better and for us to avoid the situation where we have a 0% pass rate in our rural areas?
Thank you so much, Yvonne. At Amalgamated Rural Teachers Union of Zimbabwe, we've come up with a comprehensive plan for education. We've developed a policy which we call the ADAPT strategy, where we are saying to our government on the let's adequately fund our education. To begin with, we should not look at investing in social services as a luxury. The government should not act like this father who celebrated that they managed to save $500 a month, while he said that particular time they could not take their own children to the hospital, while he said that particular time their kids were at home because they would not pay their fees, but they are just saving. When we're investing in social services, we're investing into the future, because we need educated people to give us a quality manpower in future. We need a healthy nation. That is why we should invest in healthy care. Unfortunately for our leaders, when we say adequately fund education, they think we are demanding too much. Currently, they will invest, let's say, just 13% of the national budget to our education. At a time where the sub-Saharan average for investment in education is around 16%, way below even the Dakar Declaration. But we are saying, even what they're investing, over 80% of it goes to wages, the wages which are already meager. Very little is left for capital investment. So what that leaves us is we have at a time we have a shortage of almost 3,000 schools. So we are saying let's adequately fund our education. On the D, we are saying let's devolve and democratize our education. Let's ensure that decisions for education sector are also made at the lowest level. We want to see education leaders at district level making substantial decisions, not being given instructions from Harare by a permanent secretary who is sitting in some air-conditioned office in Harare. But again, secondly, beyond devolving education management and planning, we also want to see the democratization where education leaders are not selected on partisan basis, but on merit basis. Just having a ZANU-PF card, being a ZANU-PF member should not be an automatic qualification. Easily swap their education leadership positions for council positions, for MP positions in ZANU-PF, because they are already part of, they were selected along those lines. So we are saying on the D, let's democratize, let's devolve our education. The other A, really, we are saying, let's address the curriculum deficits. We have a curriculum which is still almost a replica of colonial education. We have a curriculum which is not compatible with our educational needs as a nation. We are producing people who are not very productive for our nation. Let's rethink our curriculum and have a curriculum which is also compatible with our contextual realities. But again, still, we also have to address teacher capacity development. We have teachers who last qualified to got a diploma years back. They are still to upgrade from that particular diploma. There is no space for professional development, because when they choose to advance themselves, they have to be paying school fees. But the government again will slash their salaries. So you are not going to get a salary, but you still have to be paying to be studying. Which when we expect the teaching profession to be leading in as far as learning is concerned, because how do we teach when we are not developing ourselves? But also P, we are looking at the promotion of labor justice, which encompasses all the issues that we were raising earlier on, particularly even the structural issues of ensuring that we adhere to the dictates of Section 65 of the Constitution of the Republic. If we are saying the Constitution says every worker has a right to a decent wage, give the teachers a decent wage and see the miracles they can do. If you are saying every worker has a right to engage in collective job actions, allow the civil servants to engage in the same. Why do we criminalize job actions for teachers when the Constitution provides for it? If we are saying every worker has a right to collective bargaining, give us space to collectively bargain. We want to sign collective bargaining agreements. We should not be told, government should not be imposing conditions of services on us like we were their slaves. We have a right to be agreeing to working conditions of our choice. Then obviously the salaries, we can't speak much to it because we have done a lot of justice to it. But on the T, which is more important to me, is mostly on technological and infrastructure development in our schools. And we have said, let's just revisit it in the Ramasanga Commission of 2000. The report is clear. One of the key recommendations there, which I like so much, is that let's introduce an education equalization fund. If we have an education equalization fund, it can go a long way to rehabilitate some of our schools which have dilapidated infrastructure. It can go a long way in bridging the gap of access to education. We can build it, the 3,000 schools we're speaking to. We can bring computers to rural schools. We can connect our schools to the internet. We can bring electricity to our schools. We can do away with the fact that some teachers use tobacco bans. Because there's no accommodation. We can develop the infrastructure, but there must be a plan. Unfortunately, our government seems to be allergic to long-term planning. What they enjoy most is knee-jerk responses to crisis. No wonder why they can announce that we are no longer going to have June examinations just in April. But where were they all along? So we are saying when we set up a fund like an education equalization fund, we can rest assured but maybe in the next 10 years, we would have electrified our schools, we would have connected all our schools to the internet, we would have developed infrastructure in all our schools. But as things stand, we don't have a plan and we don't have the commitment, we don't have the will to be funding our education. But then lastly, what I would also want to see is if a rural retention and attraction allowance for teachers who choose to commit themselves to be giving service to be giving service in some of our marginalized communities. We have teachers who are down in Matepa, teachers who are down in Pinga. They are there patriotically serving our republic. One government official, when they visit that particular place, they demand a bush allowance, which is almost double the salary of the teacher who teaches there. But why don't we do like what they do in Mexico, where a teacher, if you are assigned to such marginalized community, your salary is doubled, they will give you an attraction allowance, because we believe the sons and daughters of the people who are not born there, they have a right to accessing education in the same manner as the children born in Borodale. And we can only equalize opportunities of learning by ensuring that we reward those patriotic citizens who choose to give service in those particular regions. Thank you.
Wonderful, perfect. And I think, would you think that the kind of conditions of service that we currently see are contributing to the rise in private schools? Do you think that trying to correct what government is not correcting has seen the, rise in private schooling?
Yeah, obviously you see that the private schools came in post the ISAP era, the first ISAP of Bernard Chizero, of course, when there was the funding for education was drastically reduced. This is when we have these colleges coming through, most of them really which do not meet the benchmarks of being schools. People can now even teaching in their houses. We also have in peri-urban areas, in areas like Hopley, where there is no school, no functional school that is known. But if you look at the population of that particular region, you'll be shocked where are all these learners learning. So at the end of the day, when a government chooses to underfund social services, this is when private players have to come through. And these private players, mostly they're in there for the money. They're not in there to give the service. So at the end of the day, the quality of the service suffers. The quality of delivery suffers. Now, but before I hang up, I think we should be clear and characterize the nature of this government, because we have a government who act as a state during the day, but during the night they are the business people. So these same people who are underfunding our public services, they will end up they run these schools, they run the private hospitals. So they will tell you that we want to open for business, we don't want the state to be involved in planning, but they want to open loopholes for them to loot. They want to open loopholes for them to profit here. Then the next day they are a sleeping state. During the day they are sleeping state, a state which doesn't do anything, does expect the citizens to do their thing. And that's before I just move on, this can be summarized by the statement by the President of the Republic himself, when at some rally he said, "Tikakuona usati western wawatauri streets tsvagai mari." A whole state president who is encouraging people to withdraw from national responsibility from national duties and focus on private accumulation. So how do we become a nation when we are so individualized to those particular levels which are prescribed by the President of the Republic?
President Zvakada, is this the same scenario in hospitals? I'll come to you as we round up this conversation. What would be the ideal for our doctors, for our hospitals? What would be the ideal environment under which you can operate if we are to see our primary healthcare sector improving?
Thanks very much, Yvonne. I've been following quietly as President Obert was
Masaraure
saying, and Obert Masaraure, yes, was alluding earlier on, and I was realizing that the problems that they are facing in the education just similar to the more or less the same, the challenges we are facing in our healthcare system. The challenges to do with demotivated healthcare workers, challenges to do with lack of tools of trade and the like. So there's a way forward, or what must be done in order to ensure that we revive our healthcare systems, in order to ensure that we leave functional healthcare systems for the future generations. We must intervene now, and before we no longer have hospitals to talk about anymore. So the government needs to revive the healthcare systems. They need to seriously invest in it, not to just celebrate like what President Obert was saying at the end of the month to say we have surplus, but when your children needed healthcare, you didn't take them to the hospitals. You did not attend to them at a time when they were not feeling well. So that's what needs to be done as a way forward. In that the government need to be serious and to be real about the amount of wages that civil servants are getting, and to be realistic about it. Because in the end, we have demotivated healthcare workers attending to the nation. And as you know, that a healthy nation is a functional nation, and it's a prosperous nation. So once we attend to the healthcare system of our nation, social services of this nation, I'm sure we'll prosper as a nation. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Doctor, for making time to just be with us. I know you are very busy, especially in the hospital. So if you have to go, we are releasing you, sir. So thank you so much for being part of this conversation.
Thank you very much, Yvonne.
Awesome. President Mutasa, just to wrap it up, what's the way forward? We've heard the problems. We've heard what we've heard the ideal. Now what?
Right. So the main purpose of the summit was to bring together workers. For a long time, we have allowed ourselves to be divided on the basis of useless things, on the basis of political affiliation mainly. And we have also allowed ourselves to be divided by the oppressors, by the enemies of the working class. The very same people, the ruling elites and their cronies, have divided labor through cooptation, through infiltration, and also through coercion. So we made a commitment that going forward, labor is going to be united on this issue. This is an issue that that cuts across. It does not discriminate anyone. Your political party card, whether you are ZANU-PF, you are APA, you are Mavambo, or you are MDC, cannot send your kid to school. Your political party card cannot pay hospital fees if you are not feeling well, or if your family members are not feeling well. Your political affiliation cannot be reflected on your bank statement or on your payslip. So the way forward is very clear. Workers have to be united. We are calling on all workers around the country. If you are in a trade union, your leaders must be speaking this same language, that workers everywhere without distinction must be united for this cause. The issue of salaries is very key and important. The second aspect that we have agreed is we are going to agree to take action. We've tried bargaining, NJNC has failed. We have tried bargaining, TNF has failed. The only other avenue that is left for workers is to take action. We must be very clear that the constitution of the country allows workers, allows citizens to take action. So in our united front, the ZCTU, ZFTU, Artuz, PTUZ, ZHDA, Apex Council, everyone must come on board. We don't think there's any trade unionist worth his salt who can say this is not a cause that I must unite with others. The Constitution allows us to demonstrate. It gives us the right to demonstrate. It gives us the right to picket. It gives us a right to petition. This is not partisan politics. We are speaking, we are going to speak, we are going to face the government of the day. We are going to demand from the government of the day that they treat us fairly. We are going to demand from the government of the day that they restore our dignity. We will be telling the government of the day that we are starving. I don't think there is a government that should brutalize workers for telling them that we are starving. There must not be a legitimate government in this 21st century that should jail workers for demanding a food poverty line salaries or poverty datum line salaries, that government will be illegitimate. It will be a rogue state. And this is what we agreed that we should do. So going forward, we are going to be announcing to workers the next steps that we are going to take collectively. We need to move with everyone. And we also thirdly agreed that the challenges of workers is the challenges of students. It is our kids that we are failing to send to school. So we need the students to also join in and aid to the critical mass. We also have the challenges of labor resonating with the challenges of the peasants, our fathers and mothers who are struggling and now who are taking care of fully grown up men and women who are employed full-time in banks, who are employed full-time in government, who are employed full-time in industry. We are now being taken care by our mothers who are giving us meal and maize and other foodstuffs from the rural areas. So we need to be together with the peasants, but the labor movement is going to lead in this fight for restoration of our dignity. The government can kill us. It has been killing people, but we have no choice. We are dying because we can't access hospitals. We are dying, we are starving. But we will not allow, we should not allow the government to kill people who are peacefully petitioning it, peacefully demonstrating. The government can jail us, can put us in jail. Yes, workers and trade union leaders should be prepared to go to jail. We will take all precaution to protect ourselves, to protect our families. But at the end of the day, we need to sacrifice, we need to fight for our dignity. So the dice is set, and we are very clear on this. And in the near future, all of us agreed as we did, we are going to be advising workers, we are going to be consulting workers, we are going to be giving the signals to workers. But if government does not give us respect, we are going to demand our respect in the streets. We are going to demand our respect in strikes, in demonstrations, in protests, and in picketing.
Right. And to round up, I'm left with 4 minutes, but I'm going to give you each an opportunity to say a paragraph. Your views as workers on the patriotic bill.
That's nonsense. What patriotism? Patriotism is respecting each other. Patriotism starts with Ubuntu. So if we are not respecting ourselves, if the government is killing people in the streets, shooting people, using the army that should defend us, that should defend our territorial integrity against invaders, against external people, if the government is using that army that we should treasure, that we should love, to kill ourselves, to kill defenseless citizens, they can't be the masters of patriotism. If the government is causing workers to starve, if the government is allowing themselves to loot the country dry, and people have no hospitals, people have no schools, people who are working are starving, they cannot be the preachers of patriotism. So we see this as weaponization of the law. They are engaging in lawfare, and you see that a government that has lost legitimacy, it continues to bring in many laws to curtail freedoms, to curtail people's rights, and this is what is happening. And secondly, the patriotism is not instilled through fear, through the courts, through the military, through the police. Patriotism is inborn. It is in people's hearts. It is about how people are living and experiencing their lives. So a government cannot instill patriotism in people. People respond to what the government is doing. So as Labour, like all other draconian laws, will challenge it. We don't think it is needed. What is needed at the moment is for patriotism to be instilled in those who are ruining the country, who are the ruling elites.
Thank you for that, President Mutasa. Over to you, President Zhou, your views on the patriotic bill.
It is at best a fantasy and at worst unfortunate. The greatest patriotism that can be expressed in Zimbabwe is building a credible education system, investing money in public education. The concept of public education in terms of the Dakar framework is allocating 22% of the total budget to education. So to allocate 12.7% is an insult. And I think there are people who are running out of ideas. It's an insult. The greatest thing we should do is to respect the labor laws rather than to continue urinating upon teachers, urinating upon workers and tell them it's raining.
Hey, Matangwa President, thank you so much for that view on the patriotic bill. Over to you, President Masaraure.
If the patriotic bill was going to restore the leadership code of the early 80s, I would have loved such a patriotic bill, which obviously would criminalize looting of public goods by the government itself. We entrust you with our national wealth, and you are parceling out our national wealth, you are privatizing our national wealth. That is unpatriotic and unacceptable. We have seen, if it is about stopping sellouts from selling out, we have seen the worst sellouts occupying government offices. The people who are grabbing land from Shillonga villages, that's unpatriotic. The people who are going to be paying over USD 3 billion to former white farmers without attending to the needs of the workers who are working for those farmers, that's very much unpatriotic. The people who are partially channeling our resources to pay lobbyists in the United States of America so that they can be able to be invited to the table of Angosem, that's unpatriotic and unacceptable. Unfortunately, we have instead of dealing with the challenges of patriotism which are facing, this government is always looking for a way to criminalize genuine organizing by the people of Zimbabwe, who are simply trying to make Zimbabwe a better place for everyone. Again, we will not be abiding to such draconian laws. We will disregard them like we obviously disregard other unconstitutional laws which have been imposed upon us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on this particular conversation as we talked about the state of our labor in Zimbabwe and what is the ideal and what the way forward. And I'm sure, President Mutasa, you gave us an apt way forward for the workers. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. Henry Msikawano, Jafet Moyo, Paul Samanyanga, Barbara Gwangwara, Henry Vashni Gibson. Thank you, all of you, for joining us live on Zimbabwe Daily as we brought you this conversation. Please feel free to contact us with any comments, contributions, suggestions, and if you have any topic that you feel we need to address, do feel free to get in touch with our producers at Zim Daily. So you can send us a WhatsApp message. If you go on our website at www.zimdaily.com, you will find an icon for WhatsApp. Just send us a message there and we'll be able to bring to you the programs that you need. This is Frank Talk with me, Yvonne, and have yourselves a wonderful rest of day. Thank you so much to my panelists. Have yourselves a wonderful and be safe. Be safe. Thank you so much for joining me on Zimbabwe Daily. And thanks to you. Adios. God bless you and have